You were always the one no one noticed, the shadow in the corner, the stillness mistaken for weakness, while their voices filled the air, clashing like dull swords against one another. Yours remained hidden, sealed behind clenched teeth and unspoken thoughts. They laughed louder, argued faster, performed for each other as if noise itself could crown them kings. And you, silent, endured the weight of invisibility. It was a quiet that suffocated, yet secretly sharpened. A prison, yes, but also a forge. Every pause you held was misread as uncertainty. Every lowered gaze, every refusal to interrupt, branded you as lesser. They believed silence meant absence, that your restraint meant emptiness. They couldn't see the truth your silence was recording, storing, calculating. Like ancient stone walls listening to centuries of whispered confessions, you carried everything within you. Their betrayals, their contradictions, the tremors in their laughter, layer upon layer of evidence buried in the quiet. But silence is not neutral. It is heavy, oppressive, and alive. When you kept still, it was not because you had nothing to say. It was because you knew the cost of revealing too much too soon. In their world, words were currency spent recklessly. But you learned to hoard them, guard them, let them grow in value until they could buy more than noise ever could. Each moment you withheld became an act of survival, a test of endurance. You began to wear silence like armor, and though no one else understood it, you could feel it hardening around you. Yet inside, there was no peace. Within your chest, silence roared like thunder beneath glass, a storm suppressed. Thoughts collided violently in the dark, fragments of memory and intuition sparking like flint against steel. You replayed every slight, every dismissal, every false smile that cut deeper than a blade. They thought you were blind to their hidden cruelties, their casual disregard. But you saw more in your stillness than they ever could in their frenzy. You carried those ghosts in silence, and they grew louder with each passing day. The paradox was unbearable. Outwardly, you were calm, almost forgettable. Inwardly, you were fire and ocean, the collapsing weight of galaxies pressing against a sealed door. Silence had become a second skin, one you could not shed even if you wanted to. And yet you sensed something waiting, something ancient in the marrow of your bones. Silence was not meant to last forever. It was meant to build, to shape, to gather power the way night gathers the sun before dawn breaks. You were the quietest in the room, not because you lacked voice, but because you understood its value. They mistook your restraint for fragility. They believed your absence was emptiness. But you knew. Deep down, you always knew. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the preparation of something louder than they will ever be ready to hear. You sit in the corner, unspoken, unseen, while the noise of the room collides and overlaps in a frenzy of voices desperate to matter. They mistake your silence for weakness. They think quiet means absence. But what they cannot see is that silence sharpens your vision. Every laugh that comes too quickly, every glance that lingers too long, every word chosen to hide something beneath, it all folds into you. You are not idle. You are collecting. You are watching. When others rush to fill the void with sound, you slip beneath it. Their words, their gestures, their false bravado, none of it escapes you. The tightening jaw that betrays suppressed anger, the twitch in the eye that reveals fear, the subtle shift in posture that whispers insecurity. They expose themselves in ways louder than their shouting, and you are the only one who notices. You wear quiet like a cloak, but behind it, you are an archivist of human truth, gathering the evidence they leave scattered in their carelessness. Every smirk is a file. Every hesitation is a record. Every betrayal is a sealed envelope waiting to be opened. You do not confront. You do not interrupt. You wait. Patience has always been your weapon, though they mock it as passivity. They speak without thinking, offering pieces of themselves for free, unaware that someone is measuring their worth with precision. Your silence unsettles them in ways they cannot articulate. They feel your gaze like a shadow on the back of their neck, a weight they pretend not to notice. And in that discomfort, they falter. Their noise becomes frantic, their lies more obvious, their armor thinner. There is a reason ancient texts spoke of the Watchers, silent figures on the edge of the world, observing, recording, judging. You carry that archetype within you. While others burn themselves out seeking attention, you carve power from restraint. You are the quiet ledger of the room, a hidden witness to every fault line running beneath the surface. And when the time comes, you will know exactly where to strike, because you have been listening when no one else could hear. The loudest in the room believe they control the rhythm, but you know the truth. Noise is distraction. Silence is strategy. In stillness, you hold the map of every weakness, every contradiction, every fracture they thought invisible. They will never realize that the quietest presence in the room has already dismantled them. Word by word, gesture by gesture, long before a single sound escapes your lips. Inside, there is no silence. Inside, your mind is a battlefield where storms collide, where voices you never speak with your mouth tear at you like claws in the dark. Every second you sit in that room, still, quiet, unreadable, you are holding back a hurricane. They see only calm, a surface without ripples, and they mistake it for weakness. But behind your eyes, entire worlds collapse and rebuild themselves in the span of a heartbeat. You are louder than all of them combined, but your volume exists where no one can measure it. There is a cruel dissonance in this split existence. On the outside, you are the shadow in the corner, the figure no one dares to watch for too long because your stillness unnerves them. On the inside, you burn. The chaos within you is not random. It is strategic, a ceaseless calculation of betrayals witnessed, words dissected, faces memorized. While they scatter their noise across the room, you collect it, archive it, transform it into something sharper than speech. Their chaos becomes your weapon, forged in the silence they ridicule. You have always known that silence is not absence. It is compression. It is the weight of thunder trapped behind stone walls, and every suppressed word, every thought you refused to throw into their pit of noise, has not died. It has condensed. Your quiet is heavy now, denser than the air around you. They do not know it, but each second you stay silent, you grow more dangerous, like black matter, pulling everything closer, unseen but undeniable. They laugh at you, dismiss you, forget you, but they orbit you all the same. And yet, the duality threatens to consume you. There is a part of you that longs to erupt, to flood the room with the violence of your truth. Another part whispers restraint, reminding you that silence, in its restraint, creates fear greater than sound ever could. The war between these instincts plays out in your chest, one voice demanding eruption, another warning that eruption too soon is ruin. You are both prisoner and king within your own mind, both voiceless victim and silent executioner. They will never admit it, but they feel it. The weight of your stillness gnaws at them. The ones who speak too much glance at you, unsettled by your quiet gaze, though they do not understand why. It is the same way animals sense the predator hiding in the brush, before it strikes, before it even moves. Their bodies register what their minds cannot articulate, that silence is not passive, it is predatory, and your silence has been hunting for years. This is the fracture between your worlds, the storm that howls inside you and the calm mask you wear outside, The longer you endure this dissonance, the sharper it cuts. Sooner or later, the two worlds will collapse into one. And when they do, your silence will no longer be mistaken for emptiness. It will be recognized for what it truly is, the loudest force in the room. There comes a moment when silence ceases to be refuge and begins to feel like a cage. You've carried it for so long that it has fused with your skin, each unspoken word pressed into your chest like stone. Every time you bit your tongue, every time you swallowed the truth, another brick was laid in the invisible wall around you. On the outside, you looked calm, restrained, almost indifferent. But within, the storm was swelling, violent, uncontainable, ancient. You told yourself silence was survival, that restraint was wisdom. And yet, in the stillness, you felt the weight of all the things you didn't say dragging you downward like chains into the dark. Faces blur in memory. The room where they laughed too loud, dismissed your presence, mistook your quiet for emptiness. They didn't know you were memorizing the way their words tangled, how their facades cracked when they thought no one noticed. You saw betrayals etched into subtle movements, arrogance revealed in the curl of a smirk, weakness hiding in their eyes when they turned away. They thought their noise shielded them, that volume made them powerful, but you knew better. Silence had sharpened you, had taught you to read the secret languages they could never master. And yet you remained voiceless. Year after year, opportunity slipped through your hands like smoke, recognition stolen, credit misplaced. You were the phantom who did the work while others took the throne. But pressure never dissolves, it compounds, and silence, when suppressed too long, mutates into fire. You felt it building like a scream trapped in the bones, each unexpressed truth striking sparks against your ribs. The weight of it distorted time. A second of restraint felt like hours. A single laugh at your expense carried the gravity of centuries. You told yourself you could endure it, that you could keep playing the role of the shadow, unseen, unheard. Yet in the deepest corner of your mind, something stirred. Not a whisper, not a word, a tremor, a fracture in the stone walls of your restraint. The breaking point doesn't arrive with warning. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It appears in the smallest instant, a look, a sentence, an insult too sharp to ignore. And suddenly the silence you thought you controlled reveals its true master. It rises like a tidal wave inside you, demanding release, demanding vengeance. In that moment, you realize the truth you've always resisted. Silence is not absence, silence is potential. It is the bowstring pulled taut, the blade held behind the curtain, the ancient god waiting in exile for the call to return. And as the glass begins to crack, you feel the terror of transformation. You are no longer certain who you will be when the silence finally shatters. All you know is this: once broken, it will never return to what it was. Your voice, once hidden, will carry the weight of every unsaid word, every unseen scar, every stolen chance. And when it escapes, the room will never be the same. You do not remember the first word you spoke in that room, only the silence that followed it. A silence heavier than the weight you had carried for years. They had grown used to overlooking you, to folding your quiet presence into the wallpaper of their noise. They mistook stillness for weakness. They mistook silence for absence. But the moment you spoke, the air fractured. Conversations died mid-sentence. Laughter turned brittle, and even the most arrogant eyes snapped toward you. Not because your voice was louder, but because it was sharper, forged in the dark hours where you had been left to drown in thought. Every word you uttered had been tempered like steel, slowly, deliberately in the furnace of restraint. While they wasted their energy filling rooms with empty declarations, You collected fragments, betrayals hidden in half smiles, truths whispered in trembling hands, strategies revealed in careless arrogance. And now, when your silence finally broke, it was not with the babble of the unprepared. It was with the clarity of a blade cutting through fog. You did not speak to fill space. You spoke to pierce it. They could not hide from what you revealed. Your words did not simply enter the room. They rearranged it. You saw the lies wrapped around their tongues, and you named them without hesitation. You drew invisible maps of their fears and laid them bare with sentences so precise they could not breathe without feeling your shadow pressed against their lungs. You watched as the loudest ones trembled, their voices shrinking under the echo of your own. For years they believed you powerless. Now they realized you had been recording their every weakness in silence, building a weapon none of them had the discipline to craft. And as they stared at you, some with awe, others with fear, you felt the ancient truth unfold. Silence is not emptiness. It is potential. It is the black sky before lightning, the quiet temple where gods decide the fate of empires. You were not absent, you were preparing. You were not weak, you were waiting for the moment when patience would turn into inevitability. And in that moment, you understood the cruel advantage of being underestimated. You had been invisible long enough to become untouchable. The words leaving your mouth carried more than thought. They carried prophecy. Each one was weighted with years of denied recognition, each syllable resonating like a hidden drumbeat finally heard. The room did not simply hear you, it surrendered to you. The very noise that once smothered your presence now collapsed into silence, a silence that belonged to you alone. You were the quietest in the room, but the quiet had been gathering force, like a tide in the dark. And when it rose, there was no stopping it. The air tightens the moment your words leave your mouth. It is not volume that silences the room. It is precision. For years they dismissed you, mistaking quiet for weakness, absence for emptiness. Now every syllable you release feels carved from obsidian, sharp enough to wound without blood, heavy enough to shatter illusions without raising your voice. They look at you differently, as if they had never truly seen you before, as if the shadow in the corner suddenly grew teeth. Their noise falters. Their laughter, once careless and cruel, dissolves into the hollow kind of silence that follows exposure. You do not speak to fill space. You speak to collapse it. Every sentence is a mirror, forcing them to confront truths they have spent years evading. The hypocrite cannot laugh. The liar cannot hide. The proud cannot lift their eyes. Your silence has gathered weight over time, like a storm coiling at the horizon, patient, merciless. And now, released, it becomes thunder. They are caught unprepared, their voices crumbling into stammers, their bravado stripped bare by the sharp edge of what you finally allowed yourself to say. It feels less like speaking and more like an unveiling, as though you tore away the veil of pretense and revealed the hidden machinery beneath their masks. You see the tremor in their hands, the way they glance toward each other, seeking safety in numbers but finding none. In that instant, you hold all of them hostage, not with threats, but with the unbearable weight of revelation. The quietest one in the room has become the executioner, and the weapon is truth. Inside you, something shifts. What was once a burden, your silence, your watching, your restraint, now transforms into a crown. They are realizing what you always knew. The one who listens gathers more than words. You gathered their weaknesses, their betrayals, their contradictions, storing each one like a blade hidden in the dark. And when the moment came, you chose the strike carefully, not with rage, not with chaos, but with the cold clarity of inevitability. They will remember this moment. Not the noise of their own boasts, not the hollow echo of their dominance, but the exact instant when silence turned against them and left them powerless. You see it in their faces, the collapse of arrogance, the fracture of certainty. For the first time, they understand that power is not in who shouts the loudest, but in who waits, who watches, who speaks when the world least expects it. Your revelation is not just about them. It is about you. The shadowed figure they ignored has stepped fully into form. You are no longer invisible, no longer confined to the background. You have become the storm they never anticipated, the prophecy they thought would never arrive, and the silence they once mistook for nothingness has now become the loudest voice in the room. They used to mistake your silence for absence. They thought the quiet was emptiness, a hollow space where power could not exist, but they were wrong. Silence was never a void, it was the forge. While they filled the air with words that meant nothing, you were sharpening yourself in the shadows, waiting for the moment when silence would no longer protect you. It would crown you. Now when you fall silent, the room bends around you. People shift uncomfortably, their voices stumble, their eyes flicker toward you as if expecting judgment. Your quiet has weight. It presses against them, it exposes their weaknesses. They cannot escape it. They remember what happened the last time you spoke, how your words sliced through their illusions like a blade hidden too long in the dark. They know your silence is not retreat. It is a threat. You carry it like armor, but also like a weapon. Every pause becomes a battlefield. Every withheld word unsettles them more than a shouted argument ever could. They begin to reveal themselves in the spaces you leave unfilled. Their nervous laughter, their restless movements, their need to over-explain. All of it betrays them. You no longer chase truth. You let it crawl out of them, exposed under the suffocating weight of your quiet. Silence is not passive. It is control. It is the discipline to resist the temptation of noise, to resist the chaos of proving yourself through endless explanation. You don't need to prove anything anymore. The crown rests on your head, not because you shouted loudest, but because you mastered the one thing they fear most: restraint. Your refusal to speak when others demand it is what makes them kneel. Even if they don't realize they're kneeling, there is something ancient about it. Monarchs understood it, prophets understood it, generals understood it. The figure who speaks rarely, but with precision, is remembered long after the chatter fades. You stand among them now. Every word you choose becomes scripture, every silence an unspoken law. And those who once overlooked you now dread your gaze, because in that quiet you carry the memory of everything you've seen, everything they thought you did not notice. They do not understand how silence transforms into dominion. They only feel it, like the sudden chill in a room when a storm gathers unseen. You are that storm, contained, patient, inevitable. Your silence has become the crown you wear without needing their permission. And in their hearts, they know the loudest voice in the room no longer belongs to them. It belongs to the one who no longer needs to speak at all. You were never meant to stay invisible forever. The silence that once suffocated you, that pressed against your chest like a weight too heavy to carry, has reshaped itself into something unrecognizable. It is no longer absence, no longer weakness. It is a presence so sharp it slices through every layer of noise around you. Where once your quiet was mistaken for fragility, now it reverberates as a force beyond comprehension. A shadow that dominates without lifting a blade. They thought silence meant ignorance. They mistook restraint for emptiness. They could not see how every withheld word was a stone, every unspoken thought a weapon. every quiet observation a seed buried in the soil of patience. While they wasted themselves in endless noise, arguing, boasting, deceiving, you became a vault of truths they never wished to face, and a vault of power they will never be able to steal. You were the echo they ignored until the echo became thunder. There is a strange terror in your quiet now. They feel it before you even speak. The way your silence stretches across the room like a mirror they cannot look into. You don't have to accuse them. They accuse themselves in the pause that lingers between your breaths. You don't have to shout. Your very stillness condemns them louder than rage ever could. Your quiet has become their reckoning, the judgment they cannot escape. And yet, within you, it is not anger that grows, it is clarity. Silence sharpened your vision. It stripped you of illusions and forced you to see what others hide behind their words, the fear trembling beneath confidence, the betrayal masked as friendship, the hollowness in those who pretend to matter. You see it all, and in that vision you find dominion. What they once called weakness has become the crown you now wear, an invisible crown forged not of gold, but of restraint, patience, and the unbearable weight of truths unspoken. Once you begged for a voice. Now you understand you never needed one, for silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of control. It is the ability to unnerve, to command, to conquer without lifting your hand. And when you choose to break it, when you finally let words slip into the air, they no longer come as whispers. They come as revelations, as daggers, as prophecy. And the room, no matter how crowded, belongs to you. You were the quietest in the room, but the quiet was never weakness. It was the storm gathering in the distance, the black sun waiting to rise, the unspoken truth swelling against the walls of time. And when it finally broke free, when silence became the loudest, you were no longer overlooked. You were unforgettable.